10 Golden Age stars who always cheated on their wives. Hollywood's Golden Age gave us the most iconic leading men in cinema history. Dashing, debonair gentlemen who embodied America's ideals of masculinity and honor. But behind those million-dollar smiles and carefully tailored suits lurked Hollywood's dirtiest open secret. These weren't just actors playing romantic leads. They were serial philanderers whose real-life exploits would have made their on-screen characters blush with shame. The studio system didn't just build these men into stars, it actively covered up their indiscretions, paying off witnesses, bribing police, and planting false stories to maintain their wholesome public images. What you're about to discover isn't in the official biographies or sanitized documentaries. This is the unfiltered truth about the men millions of women fantasized about, never knowing that their real-life behavior betrayed everything they appeared to stand for on screen. From secret children to hotel room scandals, from starlets pressured into silence to wives left humiliated at home. These aren't just occasional indiscretions. These are systematic patterns of betrayal by men who couldn't stay faithful if their careers depended on it. And sometimes they did. Can it be possible, Red, that you've grown a woman's heart? A real woman's heart. 1. Clark Gable, the king of infidelity. Clark Gable wasn't just the king of Hollywood. He was the undisputed emperor of infidelity. With his trademark smirk and those prominent ears that somehow only enhanced his devastating charm, Gable conquered the box office and the bedroom with equal aplomb. He played honorable men on screen, but lived like a wolf in a tuxedo. It was an open secret at MGM that no female co-star was safe from Gable's advances. From the moment he established himself as a leading man, Gable's sexual appetites became legendary among industry insiders. His conquests included nearly every leading lady he worked with and countless women behind the scenes. Clark had a system, revealed one former MGM employee. On the first day of production, he'd identify his target, usually his leading lady. By the end of the first week, he'd made his move. It was so routine that some directors would actually plan their shooting schedules around when they expected the affair to begin. His long-running affair with Joan Crawford spanned multiple films and years, their chemistry burning as intensely off-screen as on. Despite both being married to others, their relationship was so obvious that crew members would know not to enter certain trailers when both stars were preparing for scenes. But the most scandalous of Gable's affairs resulted in a secret that Hollywood managed to keep under wraps for decades. His liaison with Loretta Young during the filming of Call of the Wild in 1935 resulted in a pregnancy that Young desperately tried to conceal. She temporarily disappeared from public view, secretly gave birth to Gable's daughter, then staged an elaborate adoption of her own child to avoid the career-ending scandal. The studio fixers worked overtime on that situation, said one former publicist. Louis B. Mayer himself coordinated the cover-up. Loretta was essentially forced to adopt her own daughter and pretend she'd never been pregnant. What makes Gable's behavior particularly striking is that it continued even during his marriage to Carole Lombard, widely considered the great love of his life. Though their relationship is often portrayed as Hollywood's perfect romance, cut short only by Lombard's tragic death in a 1942 plane crash. Even this great love wasn't enough to reform Hollywood's most notorious womanizer. After Lombard's death, Gable's womanizing intensified as if he were trying to numb his grief through serial conquests. His subsequent marriages were punctuated by numerous affairs, creating a pattern that continued until his death in 1960. Music, Good Evening. 2. Errol Flynn, the swashbuckler who never left his sword at home. If Hollywood created a dictionary, womanizer would be illustrated with Errol Flynn's rakish grin. The dashing Australian actor who defined the swashbuckler genre wasn't just playing a rogue on screen. He embodied the role so completely that his name literally became synonymous with seduction. The expression in "like Flynn" entered the American lexicon as shorthand for sexual success. The swashbuckler never left his sword at home. Flynn's conquests weren't counted in dozens or even hundreds. By some accounts, including his own boastful estimates, the number reached into the thousands. From Hollywood starlets to hotel maids, from society women to underage fans, Flynn's appetite knew no bounds of propriety, morality, or even legality. Errol didn't just cheat. He made it his life's mission, revealed one Warner Brothers crew member. He would literally schedule his day around his conquests. The studio would build in extra time during productions because they knew Errol would disappear for meetings that everyone understood were actually rendezvous with various women. Flynn's predatory behavior extended to underage girls, leading to perhaps the most serious scandal of his career. In 1942, he was charged with statutory assault of two teenage girls, Peggy Satterley and Betty Hansen, aged 17 and 16, respectively. The subsequent trial became a media sensation, with Flynn's attorney successfully discrediting the victims and securing an acquit. The studio paid enormous sums to manage that situation, claimed one former Warner Brothers executive. Beyond the legal defense, there were payoffs to witnesses, bribes to police officers to lose certain evidence, and a massive publicity campaign to portray Flynn as the victim of gold diggers. Flynn's marriages to actresses Lily Data, Nora Eddington, and Patrice Wymore were all punctuated by constant infidelities. He made no serious attempt to conceal his affairs, often brazenly pursuing other women at public events while his wife was present. As Flynn aged, his behavior became increasingly pathetic rather than dashing. His looks faded due to heavy drinking and drug use, yet his predatory habits continued. In his final years, he was a shadow of his former self, trading on fading fame for sexual favors that increasingly had to be purchased rather than charmed out of willing partners. Good morning. Oh, hello. Are you getting your exercise? No, just running the steps. I came to congratulate you. 3. Frank Sinatra, the voice that melted hearts and ruined marriages. Frank Sinatra didn't just have a voice that made women swoon. He had a libido that made marriages crumble, including his own. From his earliest days as a skinny cooner to his later years as the chairman of the board, Sinatra approached infidelity with the same dedication he brought to his music. Practice, practice, practice. His voice melted hearts, and his zipper ruined marriages. Sinatra's first marriage to Nancy Barbado began with apparent devotion, but quickly descended into a pattern of chronic infidelity. As his star rose, so did his appetite for sexual conquest, with Sinatra taking full advantage of the endless stream of adoring female fans that his fame attracted. Frank was insatiable, recalled one musician who toured with him in the 1940s. After shows, he'd have his people line up girls outside his dressing room. He'd point to the ones he wanted, and they'd be brought in one after another. Nancy was home with the kids while Frank was working his way through a lineup like he was at a buffet. The most notorious of Sinatra's affairs during his first marriage was with actress Ava Gardner, a passion so intense and public that it eventually ended his marriage to Nancy. The irony, after leaving his first wife to marry Gardner, Sinatra promptly continued his philandering ways, cheating on Ava just as he had on Nancy. With Ava, it was different only because she fought back, said one Hollywood insider. She wasn't going to sit at home like Nancy did. When she caught wind of Frank's affairs, which was often, she'd have explosive confrontations with him. Then she'd have her own affairs to get even. It was mutually assured destruction. Their volatile relationship, fueled by jealousy, passion, and alcohol, became Hollywood legend. They separated multiple times before finally divorcing in 1957, with Gardner famously saying, "He's a man of 10,000 faces. The women with whom he's been unfaithful know 999 of them." Sinatra's subsequent marriages to actresses Mia Farrow and Barbara Marx followed the same pattern. Even as he aged into his 50s, 60s, and beyond, Sinatra maintained a rotating cast of mistresses, showgirl, and one-night stands. His position as an entertainment powerhouse made it easy for him to pursue and discard women with minimal consequences. The entourage around Frank was largely dedicated to facilitating his affairs, revealed a former assistant. Someone to make the initial approach to women Frank had his eye on. Someone to arrange the hotel rooms. Someone to handle the gifts and payoffs afterward. It was a well-oiled machine designed to keep a constant supply of new women coming through his bedroom door. What makes Sinatra's infidelities particularly noteworthy is how they contrasted with his carefully crafted public image as a romantic idol. While he sang love songs that touched millions, his actual treatment of the women in his life reflected anything but romance. The man who could express such tenderness through music showed remarkably little in his personal relationships. The great irony was that women fell in love with Frank's voice with the emotion he conveyed in songs like "I've Got You Under My Skin" or "All the Way," observed one colleague. But the real Frank saw women as disposable pleasures, not as the objects of the devotion he sang about so convincingly. "Mr. Jameson, Mr. Jameson, what are you doing in my bedroom? Get out of here." 4. Spencer Track,